Ontario has a speculation tax that is increasing this November. It's starting. We're also having a ban on foreign ownership that is starting in 2023 that will be enforced for 2 years. We have vacancy taxes all over the place. We're going to be talking about how is this even a thing, why it's a thing, is it possible to get over it, and what you can do regarding your prices of your homes that you're living in Canada. Now, this is a common topic. It is happening all over the world. If you look at Australia and England, it's happening in France, down in the United States and Canada, all kinds of regulations about this. So let's get into it. A little couple bit of those little tidbits, those articles that we're looking at today. Let's take a look at this first one, you guys. This is for RICO. Now, RICO is the Real Estate Council of Ontario. This is the legislative body that dictates everything for real estate in Ontario. We see starting October 25th, we're a few days late, the non-resident speculation tax has increased from 20% to 25%. So this is for anybody who is not a permanent resident of Canada or a Canadian citizen. They're going to be adding taxes for it too. Now, this is in addition to general land transfer taxes in Ontario. There are transitional provisions if you bought it before, like a new construction, and we're going to get it after the date. So that's okay, guys. We're used to that. There's always a transition period, but the main thing is that the tax is going from 20 to 25% for foreign-owned properties. So this is important for us to know. But let me tell you, as a realtor, and I run a group here in Toronto, and we operate all over Ontario, this is not something that you're going to be seeing as making a big effect on your home prices. Now, as we all know, there is a lot of foreign buyers who've been buying in Canada in droves for decades, especially as countries like China, especially Hong Kong, when they was getting handed back to China, they were coming over here and dropping billions, buying anything they could find, land, houses. They were putting all of their money here because it's very safe. In the world political climate, it's pretty safe. And that this is a place that has a lot of growth. Now, in Canada, we have a big country, but our cities are very, very limited. There's not very many of them, especially where I live in Toronto. There's this whole green belt that goes around, which is just forest that's in this circle around it. So the amount of land that people have to live on is very constricted, and it's not getting any bigger. No urban sprawl. So they just have to keep building higher and higher and build towers in that zone. So it makes it quite safe. That is why people are doing it. So what is all this fuss? Now, all the political wrangling because they're upset about home prices going up. Of course, the government's got to do something, and they kind of land on a scapegoat, right? And say, well, it's foreign investors are buying up too many properties. Yes, they already have. We all know that. They own millions and millions and millions of properties across the country, and a lot of them sit empty. Now, you have to ask me, why on earth would you say that why would they do that? Why would they keep a unit empty? And I pulled up a little chart that I just made for you, and I wanted to share it with you. Let me know what you think of this chart. So if we take a look at this chart, there's a couple numbers that we have to look on. Let's look at Toronto, and we would call this A-class cities like Toronto, Vancouver, for example, or if we're looking in the United States, it would be equivalent of saying San Francisco, LA, New York, Boston, big cities, over 1 million people. Also, I have C-class cities. Now, this is cities that are under 1 million people. Some of them are B+ as well, but we're going to give you a breakdown. So what I did is side by side, the average price of a home in Toronto is 1.2 million, same as Vancouver, 1.2 million. So we're going to say using the exact same purchase price in another city for comparative purposes. So the rent in Toronto would normally hit around 3% or so, but we're going to get this at around $4,000 a month on a $1.2 million property, which equates to $48,000 a year. But appreciation on a $1.2 million property, meaning the price of the house would go up about $180,000 a year. The total, $228,000 is what they made in the first year between appreciation and rent. Now, let's look if you deployed the same amount of capital in a small city, you would get $144,000 a year on rent. Notice in the big cities, $48,000 a year for rent. The small city, 144,000, way more rent. But the difference comes down to the price of the unit going up or not. So if we look down here, appreciation of the unit went up $180,000 in 1 year, whereas the purchase price only went up $60,000 a year. So we have to look at this chart, because this chart is what makes the difference for you when you're buying a property. A couple aspects. Number one, when they buy in a main city, they make all their money through appreciation. As you can see here, $180,000 they made on profit by doing nothing. Now, to rent out that property, to make the small risk here, so they made 15% on appreciation, 3% renting it out. Why would they risk them ruining their unit, wearing out the floors, wearing everything out? Maybe they'll have a nightmare tenant who's going to destroy their unit, getting phone calls, getting property management to deal with it, going and getting property management to unplug a toilet to make their 3%. They would rather sit back, have no headaches, not rent it out, and make the $180,000 easily. Now, there's a second aspect to that. If you made the $48,000 in passive income, according to taxes in Canada, it's taxed at 50% passive income. So they would not have any taxes, not benefit. There would be hardly money left over at the end, and they can just sit back and take appreciation every 3 years, go refinance the property. Debt is not taxable. So they get all that money, no taxes. Let's look at the other side. The other side, you make $144,000 a year in rent. Huge. But now you have to pay taxes on that, 50%, and you don't make a lot of appreciation. So for foreign investment, they need to be in this category over here. A-class properties that can put all of the money on appreciation, which are not taxed on right away. They can re-borrow it in 3 years. So they're sitting in a situation that is favorable for them for taxes, and it's also favorable for them to keep it empty. If somebody lives in Canada, this is not the primary place you'd want to be. If you live in Canada, you want to be in this category. You got to diversify. Not saying all in, you need a little bit of both. So this right now is telling you why they do that. And this is why over the years, so many people have been buying here. Now, of course, it's all countries of the world. It's super, super easy to buy here, are buying in Canada. The problem is where we are desperately in need of housing, all of these houses are getting soaked up, put into corporations or into personal names, and sitting empty. In Toronto, there's a lot of estimates that are out there, somewhere in the realm of around 500,000 homes in Toronto are sitting empty and nobody's living in it. That could house easily 1.5 million, maybe 2 million people easily. So, all of these homes that are sitting empty, and that is why they want a vacancy tax. So the vacancy tax, let's take a look at that, you guys. We had that up here for you. Sorry, I got to switch the screens over for you guys to see it. All right, if we take a look at that, the vacancy tax, what they want to do is charge 1%. 1% is the rate on your property's current value assessment. Now, taxes a year are normally at around 0.75%. So it's more than doubling what your taxes would be, which is already very high. Now, let's take that into account for a second. What doesn't sound like a lot, 1%, 0.75%. That means on a $1.2 million property, you could be paying $20,000 in taxes a year. $20,000. That's a lot. So this does severely impact it, but here is the problem. It's generally voluntary disclosure. So when something is voluntary, there's not a very long line of people who are lined up to say, here, please take my 20,000. A lot of people just say, forget it, and I'll pay it if they ever get caught, unfortunately. So you have to declare this self-disclosure, but there are exemptions to the empty home tax. The exemptions are, if there's the owner's death, if you're undergoing medical care, which is rare, but what we see a lot of is if there's any renovations currently taking place in the home. So what do you guys think that we're going to see is somebody's going to change their kitchen and it's going to take them 2 years to renovate their kitchen. Whenever there's rules and regulations, there's always games, right? Always somebody gaming the system. Unbelievable. Okay, guys. In addition, as of next year, also blaming the foreign buyers who are coming in, they want to prohibit the purchase of residential properties. Now, this is starting January 1. New legislation will be enforced for 2 years as part of the country's response to soaring housing prices. Now, in Canada, we are in desperate need of a minimum of 1 million homes today. And now that Canada wants to bring in 500,000 people a year, we're going to need a lot more than that. And we're nowhere even close to being able to build that many homes. We're not even close to even capable of doing that. We would have to declare a national emergency. The amount of conscription that they had in the war, like that level of fervor to be able to build that many homes. So the shortages will continue. This is not like 2008 in the United States, where there was an abundance of homes, more homes than there were people. This is a completely opposite situation where labor has soared to the moon, materials have gone up to the moon, and now we're going to have more people than we know what to do with no properties. Builders, since the great financial crisis, have been building luxury homes, not entry-level homes. So if you're in entry-level homes, the demand is going up and up and up. Interestingly, in Toronto, condos, townhomes are up 10%, but the big homes are down 25%. That tells you everyone has to live somewhere. And as those big homes, they move out of them, they have to downsize, and they'll downsize into the smaller ones. Rents are up 20% year over year. We'll see a massive demographic shift as people leave those expensive properties and move down. This is what we call band squashing, where the expensive homes become cheap, cheap homes become more to the middle. So that is how you're going to be able to keep yourself safe. Now, of course, we always need to blame somebody. They're always going to talk about the foreign buyers buying it. A lot of money came in from China, Saudi Arabia, and any country that is kind of iffy politically. They're going to come and buy in a safer country like Canada. United States is a lot harder to buy. Canada's just open doors. But here's the thing is, though we want to talk about it now when there's a lot of fervor in the market, well, it's been open season for the past 5 decades. So you guys, it's a little bit late to the party to start that. This should have happened a long, long time ago. We should have put some regulation on that. But who am I? I'm not a prime minister. I'm not a president. But you guys, hopefully this helps you out understand a lot. There's all these rules that are floating about there. That's my opinion. What's happening. It's not going to help fix any of the problems that we have right now. It's not going to put a dent in the prices. In all the years that I have been dealing in real estate and selling properties, all the years, very rarely do you come across somebody who wants to buy it as a foreign investor. It's rare that comes across. It still happens, but it's a lot more rare. And why? It's partly because of the answer of Canada bringing in more immigrants per capita than most countries on the planet. They bring in so many that almost everyone has an aunt, a cousin, a brother, a sister, or something that lives in Canada, and they just have them buy it for them and avoid having to pay those taxes. So it looks good politically. It looks good on the front page of the newspaper. It looks like the government is doing something, but don't expect it to change your life at all. Anyway, my name is Dave Ruff. I operate in Toronto. If you're interested in selling your homes, that's what we specialize in. Sell your home for more money, less hassle, and do it faster. After all the clients I've had in my entire life, those are the only 3 things. And if you focus on those 3 things, you have a happy client every time. Anyway, you guys, hope you enjoy this type of video. Give me a thumbs up if you like this stuff. If you don't, let me know as well what it is, what I can do to improve it. Anyway, please subscribe to the channel. And if you know one person that this could help, please send it to them. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you like that video, you might like this one and maybe something like that.